Hey, sup, dude? So, going into this video, I don't know why, like very last minute, I was like, you know what? I'll just get most of the Spider-Man related stuff that I own and just put it in the background. It's a decent chunk of stuff, and I don't know. I just threw in my Spider-Man Squishmallow, which is also the only Squishmallow I own. Uh, I got some random like Miles Morales doll. Just randomly got it for Christmas. Got a pop figure of Miles. I got the vinyl for Spider-Man. Got the video games for PlayStation. I got the Spider-Man trilogy, Tobey Maguire trilogy, the only trilogy that's like, well, I mean, I like the other trilogies, but the Tobey Maguire trilogy, come on. We got Into the Spider-Verse. I don't know if you could see Into the Spider-Verse because I might be blocking it, which is, I don't know if that's inappropriate or not because this is literally a review for the sequel. So, I don't know. After 4.5 years of waiting, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has finally come out. This has been one of my most anticipated films since I walked out of Into the Spider-Verse in 2018. Since that film's release, we have seen plenty of other films that were inspired by it, like The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Bad Guys, and later this year, we're getting TMNT Mutant Mayhem, which I gotta say, looks pretty incredible, dude. Into the Spider-Verse is one of the most influential animated films of all time, and for me, it set a new bar for animated films. So obviously, there's a lot of pressure on the team developing the two planned sequels to the film. Now, I gotta be honest with you. 5 minutes into this movie, I immediately knew that bar was set even higher. This is unlike anything you've ever seen. First off, the star of the show is the animation. I wish all the animators that put their blood, sweat, tears, and love into this movie a very, very well-deserved promotion. Because my God, they have been cooking for the past 4.5 years. Of course, you have the same visual style for Miles' universe that you've seen in the previous film, but in Gwen's universe, you have these vibrant colors always clashing and changing within the scene depending on the character's emotions. Every universe is designed in a way that perfectly fits the identity of the Spider-Person from that world. And the art style goes beyond the universe. There are hundreds of different Spider-People in this film, and they all have their own unique style. Spider-Punk looks like a drawing ripped out of a rebellious teen's journal. Spider-Man 2099 fits the very futuristic vibes of his universe, and every Spider-Person from separate shows, comics, and even video games all keep the original vision from their source material. It's just a big, visually stunning treat with everything going 100 miles an hour and left me dumbfounded. The music in this film also really stood out to me. The soundtrack by Metro Boomin was pretty good, and the original score was done by Daniel Pemberton. And although some themes from the first film are reused and spiced up a bit, there are a lot of new songs that honestly got stuck in my head. The Across the Spider-Verse intro and outro tracks both got my blood boiling in a good way, and Spider-Gwen's new theme just got me tapping my foot with a goofy grin when it played during some exciting action scenes. Speaking of Gwen, I loved how much they focused on her character. She gets a lot of development in this film and even gets her own arc. I've heard people describe her as the second lead to the film right next to Miles, and I kind of agree. Continuing on about the characters of this film, I really love how the film began to develop Miles' character and throw new challenges at him. There are a lot of scenes early on with his parents, and I really appreciate how real some of those conversations felt. We get to catch up with how he's been handling being Spider-Man a year after the events of the previous film, and it reminded me a lot of Spider-Man 2 and Peter's personal struggles in that film. Continuing on about the characters in this film, I didn't think Peter B. Parker was in this enough. Now, if I'm being honest, I think they used him the right amount of times in this movie, and there's some really great scenes with him and Miles, but I kind of wanted a tad bit more of him. I can't help it, he's one of my favorite characters from the first film. I'm sure they'll use him more in the sequel though. The crew of Spider-People from the first film, Spider-Noir, Spider-Ham, and Penny Parker, do not join Miles and Gwen in this film. Instead, we have Spider-Man India and Spider-Punk. Although I did miss the old crew, I really loved the new guys. They worked very well with Miles and Gwen and both have some really great moments to shine throughout the film. Spider-Man 2099 throughout the promotional material has been highlighted as the main antagonist of the film. If you've been following this film before its release, you were definitely curious as to what Miles did to not only have Spider-Man 2099 running on all fours, but every Spider-Man ever on his ass. After seeing the film, I do think the reason is understandable, but it's not like I was against Miles too. In some of the trailers for this film, you may have seen a bit of one of the antagonists named The Spot, and I was actually surprised at how much I liked him in this film. He also has one of the funniest villain origin stories of all time, and it kind of left me in shock that a studio as big as Sony really just let the funniest thing ever happen and become canon. Something I've noticed about the film overall that I haven't really heard anyone talk about is how it's paced. If you just sit back a moment and think about all the things that happened and places the characters went in this movie and compare it to what happened in the first film, you may realize that this film is not that fast paced. I think it takes us a good hour into the film before Miles starts traveling, across the Spider-Verse, like the title of the movie. Hell, the film has a cold open that is like 15 to 20-ish minutes long. This sounds like a critique of the film, but I didn't mind it. They use this slower pace to their advantage. We have more time to take in some of the scenes and watch the characters interact. There's this moment with Miles and Gwen that I don't have like the footage for. It's like 50 minutes into the film, and no, it's not. It's after the scene where they're hanging upside down and sitting next to each other, which is also a really great scene. I don't know, it really stuck out to me. It was this little quiet moment. They weren't using their superpowers, and I feel like if this film had like a much faster pace, like we need to get this done, we need to go over here, we need to go over here, because there's a lot of stuff they need to do in this film. I don't know, it was a little scene that I really appreciate, and there's a lot of that in this movie where there are these little quiet moments, especially like in the very beginning. Like in that 2 hours and 20-minute runtime, realistically in the plot, they do get a decent chunk of stuff done, but I feel like if this film had a faster pace, we would have gotten to the ending like probably at like 90 minutes, maybe an hour and 40. But yeah, the pacing in this film feels much slower compared to the original film, but I think they handled it pretty well. It also makes sense because this is part one of a larger story. I have been a massive Spider-Man fan for as long as I can remember. I'm personally a console gamer, like I've never really gotten too much into like PC gaming or anything like that. And 2 years ago, I switched from Xbox to PlayStation just so I could play Spider-Man PS4, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and like I'll eventually be able to play Spider-Man 2 when that comes out in September. And because the Xbox has zero games, although this film has so many different Spider people and Easter eggs that made me happy, the film didn't live and die on that alone. On its own, it's a triumph of a film. Watching this film felt like I was witnessing a big moment in film history in real time. It's pushed animation so far beyond what I thought was possible, and has reminded me that this medium is truly capable of capturing anything the human mind can dream up. Since its predecessor came out in 2018, we have been seeing other animation studios drop trying to make animated films exclusively in 3D and begin to bring so many different art styles and visuals to their films. I hope that doesn't slow down anytime soon after Across the Spider-Verse. This film is the first part of a planned two-part story. Although the film obviously ends on a cliffhanger, I don't feel the way I did watching Fast 10 where it just ends with no real idea of what's going to happen next. I feel the same way I did watching Infinity War and Dune Part 1. It is a perfect intermission that left me satisfied with the first part of this story, which will wrap up in Beyond the Spider-Verse in March of 2024. This film was everything I wanted it to be and more, and I'm going to be giving Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse a 5 out of 5. It's unlike anything you've ever seen. Anyways, that's all from me. Hope you're doing well. See ya.